Hello, good evening. Welcome to another episode of Guns and Yellow Ribbons. Get your Gooner. We do have Layth Yousif, author, journalist, and more importantly, the editor of the Gooner Fanzine, joining us for the first half hour of the show. We're going to look at Europe away. We're going to look at Forest away. And then afterwards, we'll lick our wounds and talk about the West Ham game. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to another podcast by Guns and Yellow Ribbons. This is your Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Enjoy the show.
Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Well, when I say gentlemen, I really am addressing you, Layth, directly. The other two I know too well, so I know they're not gentlemen. How are you, Layth? Welcome to the show.
Not too bad. Cheers. Thanks for having us on. I haven't done a podcast in a while, so I'm looking forward to this. So, it's just a shame about the weekend, but I'm sure we'll be looking forward. So,
forwards, not backwards, but we'll do backwards when you're gone. Because you're going to do dad cabs at about 7:30, haven't you? So
yes, I got around for the kids and stuff. So, hence a cup of tea rather than a beer tonight. But I'm sure we'll catch up in Eindhoven, hopefully.
Yeah. Dan, how's Monday gone for you?
Oh, mate, it's one of the worst Mondays I've had. Honestly, I'd say in the little lobby before we got in here was the first time I've smiled since 3 p.m. on a Saturday. But there's always something to smile about. And look, we've made it 1 minute and 50 into the podcast and you've not kicked us out yet. So it's all going well, mate.
I've got 3 minutes left. Trevor, I'm in control, so there shouldn't be any problems. Oh, look at his T-shirt. Look what he's got on his T-shirt. Let's have a look at you. You're a knobhead, aren't you? Look at that.
I said I'd forgiven you. I might have lied a little bit, Faith. I'm still a little bit annoyed with you. But
listen, the one thing I have noticed about that, with that one there is no Photoshop on that. We can see the concave rather than the one up where your flag like that.
I'll take it off now because I don't want to embarrass you for too much longer. And we've got more important things to talk about than you making me look an idiot on Friday when halfway through the podcast.
Look, let's move on. What you guys didn't see afterwards is I went on the stream afterwards and talked to the guys. I was purple with embarrassment. I was just mortified, absolutely mortified. Layth, a member of the 92 Club. 40 years it took you to be a member of the 92 Club. Finished at Harrogate.
Yes, it was great fun. I got to about 60 or 70 clubs when I was about sort of in my mid-20s, and I just never got over the line until the kids are sort of grown up and all the rest of it. But I had a really, really enjoyable day in Harrogate. It was cut a long story short, I got presented by someone who worked for my lads say Betty and Taylor's Yorkshire Tea, and they gave me a bag of 1,000 tea bags, and I walked into Harrogate and they were like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, this is my 92nd club," and they were like, "Oh, you should have told us, got you on the pitch at half time." I was like, no, it's fine. But very glad to get to 92. It's something I wanted to do for a while. So got over the line, and obviously you have to sort of top it up every year. And I topped up with Bromley this year, and I'm sure you guys know Andy Woodman, former Arsenal man. He's doing great guns down there. He was a really, really good guy to talk to. So I went down last August.
Jenko down there as well, hasn't he?
My newspaper and obviously the Gooner as well. And he's a lovely guy. I'm going to get down at some stage again with maybe talk to Carl Jenkinson at some stage because he's down there now as well. So, I could blather all the day about the 92 Club, but it's I'm glad I got over the line anyway. So yeah.
And not only the Gooner Fanzine, you've done a couple of books as well. You've done The Miracle of Copenhagen, which talks about the triumph in 93, 94 in Copenhagen. Super Kevin Campbell getting us to that final by his goal in the semi-final, and also a book that Trevor's got. Let's take that off there. Arsene Wenger 50 defining fixtures, which you signed for Trevor. Trevor,
cheers, mate. Thank you. It makes a good doorstop anyway. So.
No, mate, I love that book, and I've got a question to ask you about that book in a minute because, I'll ask it now. Ferg won't mind. You cover 50 games under Wenger in that book, right? And I read it, and I had another flick through it today because it was quite a while ago when I read it, and about 45 of those games, I could make a case for being the game that interests me. And obviously, the nightmare against Barcelona in the Champions League final was the one that bites. But I looked at it, and the two that stood out for me, that for different reasons, was when I thought Middlesbrough were going to nick the unbeaten record off us at Highbury when they went 3-1 up. I couldn't believe what was happening. Parler was having a blinder. And then the other one, of course, is the one that everyone remembers and loves, was the 5-1, in the San Siro, mate. What a night that was. What one stands out for you, Layth?
Blimey, there's so many. Good question. That 5-3, I included that because you guys will know you were there yourselves, and it was such a glory. It was just almost like the archetypal peak Wenger glorious afternoon at Highbury. I mean, it was in August, the start of the season. Sun was shining. We had Reyes, God rest his soul. He was on fire. We had Bergkamp, Henry, all the great names, and it was a perfect day. 3-1 down. Anyone who was there that day, you'd remember, you weren't worried. You'd be like, well, we're going to score 4, we're going to score 5, we're going to score 7, whatever it is. We were going to get back into it and we were going to win the game. And it was like, you score, we'll score. You score. And it was just a perfect, enjoyable game of football under those, like I say, those peak Wenger years. I mean, we all went through the end of it, and it's probably there's no point talking about it now. But those were the happy days, and those are the days you want to remember. Anyone, of course. The defeat, but those were really happy days, and we thought it'd never end, to be honest. I mean, people go, "Oh, you should have saved it," and we did, but you think it's going to go on for longer than it did, and I suppose you could argue the full stop came in Paris in 2006 for the Champions League final. Obviously, I was there, and you guys were there as well, and it was just that was almost the end of the Wenger era, really, in terms of the first Wenger era. And it was just such a shame, but thanks for buying that. But it was it brought back a lot of happy memories. I was flicking for it the other day because I was sending it out to someone, and it was a good time. We've been spoiled most of the time, although it has been a long 20 years since we last won the title, really. So
I think Trevor mentioned it when we're out having a beer ahead of the game, that some of the kids today are 25 and that sort of age won't ever have remembered a title. I've not seen us lift a trophy in the Emirates Stadium personally. I lived in the area in 98 and 2002 when we won the league, and I lived out this sort of way in 2004, but I wasn't a season ticket holder at that stage, so I didn't get to see. Another thing that you do that's really important to the club is the Gooner Fanzine. You've now got the women's Gooner as well, and Albert, I know, a friend of the show, is doing, I think, a podcast as we speak about the women's football game. But Lewis Dunford talks about saunas and different things. Talk to us about this, you and Keown.
That looks far more incriminating than it was, basically. Cut long story short, we've actually got exclusive interview with Martin Keown in the latest issue of the Gooner, which was out on Saturday. We're burning the midnight oil to get it over the line for the West Ham game, and cut long story short, I've got a bit of a sort of routine selling the Gooner on match days. I'll stand outside Arsenal Tube till the legendary Alex turns up about sort of 1:30. Then I race across to Bear Roundabout, and I stand there till sort of 2:45, and then I duck in the media entrance and obviously cover the game as a journalist in the press box. So it's quite a nice routine. You see loads of people, really friendly face. See you guys, see everyone. It's almost the highlight of the week. Some bad weeks anyway, when the results aren't the best. And if it's not raining or snowing, then it's a lovely day for catching up with people and being sociable, basically. But anyway, so you sort of see everything that goes on. You see the coaches come in, all sorts of behaviour, good and bad, and all the rest of it in North London life, as well as fans coming to the ground. And anyway, I sort of saw Keown. I saw this sort of kerfuffle at the cafe across the road, and saw Keown. I was like, oh my god, it's Martin Keown. I've got to get over there. So you can sort of see the fans sort of getting autographs and all the rest of it. And I was like, I could spend 10 minutes doing that and miss some sales or whatever. So I had me sort of journalist that, and I sort of got in there and I was like, Martin, we've got you interviewing. And he sort of looked at me a bit confused, say like, really? And I was like, look, can I get a photo of it and help with the sales? And obviously, I loved you as a player and all the rest of it, because a bloke called Nick Callow did the interviews. He's a really, really brilliant journalist and a top guy. And Martin was like, yeah, definitely. So I sort of angled it. And then, obviously shoot first, ask questions later. So I had about 4 photos of the same picture with me, sort of almost photobombing Martin, getting the Gooners in. And I looked at it afterwards, after he went, I shook his hand and said, thanks very much, he's top bloke. And I was like, oh my God. So if you know, basically. I'm not saying I've ever visited there, and certainly Martin, I'm sure he hasn't. But
so he wasn't leaving the Sona then. He was leaving the Wonder of You camp.
Old school Gooners basically saying, "Oi, what's going on there?" But yeah, no, it's all good fun. So yeah, Martin's a top bloke, and it's a really good interview. Nick's done a really great interview. He's obviously got his book out and stuff, but we all remember him as a player, and yeah, he's in the book as well. He was brilliant. He was just such a great centre half, wasn't he? And such a great Arsenal man as well. And yeah, we say we could do with him because we've got some great centre halves ourselves, but we can certainly do with his spirit at times. So yeah, it was a good day all round. So yeah, thanks for reminding me of the aqua sauna bit in the background. Anyway,
he was a special player, Martin. Yeah. As you just said, with his attitude and that. I'm sorry about him, Ferg, but I've got one burning question about the Gooner I want to ask you. I think
so was Dan.
Oh, sorry, Dan.
It's all right. I'm used to being chopped off by you lot now anyway, so I'll wait.
Oh, I think that Fergus undersold you slightly, Layth. I mean, I honestly look at you, mate, as the saviour of the Gooner, because we all know there was a period when it really struggled, and you went beyond what anyone could expect to keep it running. What's it looking like now, mate? Is it okay? Is it in a good place?
Yeah, I appreciate your kind words. Yeah, it was just knowing my luck. I took over from Kevin Witcher, who's been a real help and bit of a mentor at times, and he's obviously steeped in Gooner Fanzine history. I took over it like literally 2 weeks before COVID came. I'm obviously not laughing at COVID. I'm laughing at the bad timing, because that sums me up basically. But yeah, it was a real struggle. Obviously with print, I mean, where'd you start as a print journalist myself who works for a newspaper? It's no one buys print. No one reads newspapers anymore. It's dying a death. I love print. I love the fact you've got a tangible entity in your hand. You can smell it, you can hold it, you can collect it, you can keep it, you can fold it up, do what you want with it. I love that sort of thing, and I always will to my dying day. And I'm proud to call myself a newspaper man. And it seemed like a natural progression to, if I had the time, to take over the Gooner, because it was ailing a bit. I mean, it's no criticism of Kevin, and I've said it to him as well. It was a difficult time, because there's only so much you can say about sort of, certainly in the late Wenger era. And I came with a completely different mindset. I was like, right, it's got to be, you can't be putting match reports in from 2 months ago, because you can get it 5 minutes after a game. You don't need to put that sort of stuff in. And I took my complete sort of, had a newspaper man's head on basically, and made a few changes, changed some things, pared all the costs down. We're still losing money on print. I defy any newspaper in the world to tell me they're not losing money on print, but we've managed to stable it. We've got a few advertisers in terms of online. The numbers are doing well online through what I like to think is decent journalism, decent writing from our writers. It's certainly not sensational, and I wouldn't want it that way anyway. So when Arsenal do well, the Gooner does well, and I've always prided myself on that. I'm sure every other editor has as well. We're not sensationalists. We're not looking to go down the hysteria route. We're certainly not abusive, anything like that. We always call it, we say it's informed, irreverent, intelligent, basically. If you're any of those, buy the Gooner, give it a read, because it's bright, it's positive. We're realistic as well. We're not going to say black's white and white's black, basically, but we do try and be positive, and there's a lot of timeless articles in there, which I would say it, but they're really interesting. We've got some really good writers. I
subscribe to it. I get it sent to me every 3 months or whatever it is. Conscious of your time, Dan, you had a question, and then we'll go on and talk about Forest and
cool.
PSV.
Yeah.
Just a bit of a two-part question, really. Just bringing that picture up of Martin Keown. Obviously, sometimes you have to have your professional hat on, and then you've got your sort of personal hat on. And I just wondered, firstly, from a personal perspective, who's like the biggest star you've met that maybe you was a bit nervous speaking to? And then maybe from a professional standpoint, who's the player or star that you've met that probably comes across a lot better in person than he does in the media?
Oh, good question, mate. Good question. I've been in like Champions League sort of pre-press conferences when there's been like Zinedine Zidane and people like that there, and it is a bit of an out of body experience, because you do have to sort of go, right, that's Zinedine Zidane, but you have to be professional as well, obviously, and get your question in and not be a sort of fan. But I remember interviewing Tony Adams, and for me, you know, as much as you can talk about Henry and Bergkamp and all those absolutely brilliant players, absolute Arsenal legends, Tony Adams was one for me. I was growing up, and you know, I was lucky enough to sort of see the '87 side come through after sort of, you know, the early 80s that was quite disappointing for Arsenal. And he was my first. Charlie Nicholas was probably my first hero, but he was the first one who actually achieved stuff. I know Charlie won the Littlewoods Cup, and I was there in '87 and all the rest of it. But Tony Adams was Mr. Arsenal, and he was my hero. And I remember we did the interview at a hotel in it was Paddington near the train station, real plush hotel, and that was the only interview where I had to stop myself from hugging him. Basically, I was, because he was cut a long story short, he was sort of, he was obviously pushing Sporting Chance, and rightly so. It's an amazing charity, and they do so much good work, and that was a sort of height of him doing it, and he still does it and everything. But and he was sort of waiting for me to go, ask a question about Arsenal. And I was like, I'm just gonna let him talk, because that was it at the start. He obviously didn't know me from Adam, and why would he? And he goes, I'm not going to talk about Arsenal. I was like, all right, Tony, fair enough. So tell us about Sporting Chance. So he spoke for about 20 minutes. Sporting Chance had my notepad, obviously, did my shorthand, had my dictaphone as well. We had a photographer there, and he just sort of talked himself out. And it was a brilliant job, and he was amazing what he was saying about it. And they do such great work. And then he sort of looked at me, and then I just sort of, I got to ask you about Arsenal, Tony. I used to watch you every game for, you could have 95% of your career, basically. And then we talked for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. We were still there later. And it was, honestly, I was hugging him like he was hugging me as well. And it was, honestly, it was my favourite ever interview. It's out there somewhere. I mean, we sort of sliced and diced it. And obviously, I was working for a Fleet Street newspaper at the time, and they used a bit in there. And obviously, we used it with a Gooner as well. And but that was the only time when I've gone, honestly, I need to hug this man, basically. But
one last question on the Gooner. Joanne Tester, a really good friend of the show.
Yeah, Joe's great.
Joe.
Huge respect, Joe,
she asked, "Is the Gooner the first to run a ladies' edition?" And I put up the cover of the first ladies' edition, which is this one here. Are you the first fanzine to run a ladies' edition? Do you know?
There's a United one, and there's a Chelsea one. We're obviously the first Arsenal sort of entity to do it, but I've been really looking into this, because obviously I covered women's football when I was at the Islington Gazette, when not many people did. And I got into it, and obviously my daughters play it, and I love it, and I will talk all day about it. I absolutely love the characters, and the coverage the access we get. I was at London Colney the other day, obviously doing Arteta's presser, and they do the women's presser as well, sometimes on a Friday as well, obviously. And we had Leah Williamson for half an hour. That's like, you imagine having an England captain who's won a European trophy in front of you for half an hour, not 2 minutes talking about something they want to sell. They're literally having a discussion. So the access is amazing. So everything about it is just brilliant. And I just thought, why not? We did a digital one first. So you get your QR code and you scan it. We had 150,000 people read it, and I was just like, right, we need to do it. And obviously, I've got to pay tribute to a lad called Freddie Cardi. He's absolutely brilliant. He's basically our Arsenal women's report. He does every game. He's at university. I've known him since he was a kid. Obviously, knows family and stuff. He's from Hitchin, so and I've just watched him grow. And he obviously wants to be a journalist. He'll be on Match of the Day in 10 years' time, if that, 5 years. And he does a lot of work behind the scenes for it. I'm just there, sort of steer the hand on the tiller, as it were, and a bit of experience, basically. And we've got such a brilliant team of young, hungry writers who are absolutely fantastic. They're I can't praise them highly enough. And we pulled it all together, and it did really well. The sales for the North London Spurs, for the North London derby against Spurs, the women's game, and we're going to probably do another print issue before the end of the season, basically. And it's almost re-energized me a little bit, because the Dynamo Zagreb game, for example, it was freezing cold. I stood outside for 3.5 hours. And I sold 2 copies of the men's Gooner, and you just think, and it's not even. I completely understand with people. You don't have to buy it. I'm not forcing you to buy it, but when I stand there and I see things, you see people spending 25 quid on a half and half scarf, or walking down with a cannon around. It's probably cost them 4 quid out the shop, and they won't buy the Gooner. And you just think, well, what? When I was a kid, I used to read everything about the club. I wanted to know everything. And obviously, if it's people going, oh, it's negative from the Wenger, well, buy it and have a look, and I'll give you your money back if you think it's negative now, because it's not. It's positive. It's packed with great writing. It's a labour of love. No one ever makes any money out of it. I'm doing this because I want to give people a platform, because I love the written word. I love print.
That's what we try and do on here as well. We try and have an objective view of a game. Like, okay, we've had a poor result at the weekend, which we'll talk about later, but we won't there and be slagging off players and so some players didn't have a great game. Listen, let's go forward and let's look to Forest away Wednesday at 7:30. Trevor, us three are all going up there. I'm sure you're up there as well, Layth, because you don't miss a game hardly.
Actually, I haven't missed a game this season. Actually, no, I'm on 39, 40. But
same as
long story short, my daughter's at Nottingham University first year. I'm a proud dad. She's done brilliantly, passed her A level. She went travelling last year. Sent me pictures of her in Thailand with an Arsenal shirt. So I brought her up right, basically. So I'm going to take her out for lunch in the afternoon. I think she's got lectures in the afternoon, but I said it's all right if you bunk it this time. I won't tell you lecturer. We're going to go at the game. So we're going in the way end, and we're going to watch support the dad and the daughter day out. And I know a curry house on the Mansfield Road, the other side of Nottingham. I'm going to take her out there afterwards. So it's just, I can't wait. I really can't. And obviously, with football, terrible result on Saturday, worst performance of the season, worse than Newcastle away in the league. But it's what we do. It's what we do. 40 years I'll be doing this. You boys will be doing the same. It's in the DNA. Win, lose, draw. We'll be there next week. If I wasn't in the press box, I'd be in the way. And that's what I tell people. And I'm in the way and on Wednesday night, just like you boys are. So I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. What I would say, if you talk purely in terms of football, is I covered Forest Liverpool, and I fought Forest back in January, the day before the Arsenal Spurs game, and I thought Forest were magnificent that night. They should have beaten them, really. Their intensity was just so good. They've got such great players as well. They're really unheralded. But you've got Milankovic, you've got Murillo. The centre halves are brilliant. You've got people like Ryan Yates as well, who's completely unsung, but he'll be a busy presence on Wednesday night. Obviously, Chris Wood's the focal point, 33 years old, and he's got, 19 goals or something? It's unbelievable. But so Arsenal have to be on it. We were there last year, obviously, we won 2-1. That was a real battle, but Arsenal have to be on it to beat Forest on Wednesday. Forest are no mugs. I've got huge respect for Forest, and but looking forward to it.
Trevor, we're getting value for money. If we're paying by the word for this half hour, we definitely got value for money from you, Layth. Trevor, what's your expectations if we're looking at Forest away? As Layth rightly said, we won 2-1 when we were up there last. We're behind the goal when Jesus scored and came behind the goal and done that. A place that we silenced and a place that's very hard to silence unless you're on top form. What's your hopes and expectations?
Well, the previous couple of visits before last year, we'd struggled. We couldn't. We played an FA Cup game and a league game, and didn't look like we're in the game at all. But I'm hopeful for Wednesday. As Layth just said, we're Arsenal fans. I'm always hopeful for the next game. It don't matter what happened at the last game. If I let that get too far into my head, I'm going to think we're going to lose 7-0 at Forest on Wednesday. When we're not. We're not. Oh, please don't let it happen now.
You jinxed it now. No. Yeah.
But I think if Arteta's done his job, which I'm sure, I read your piece actually, Layth, about how angry he was after the game on Saturday.
Yeah.
And that I like that. I really like the fact that more than one person has said Arteta was really angry in that press conference, as he should be.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping he's done his job as a manager and we'll go out on Wednesday and turn it around. But I have got to just go back to the West Ham game. I'm not going to dwell on it for more than
We haven't even done the West Ham game yet.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about in relation to Wednesday. God, you're not the most clever person on the planet.
No.
Right.
Clearly.
We have got a lot of turning around to do after Saturday. And that's all I'm going to say on it. I don't want to think about it for too long. We're going to have to talk about it briefly after you've dodged it, Layth, and gone.
What I would say, I'll just say, see, I'm in a very fortunate position to see Arteta week in, week out, and on Friday presser at Colney, post-match pressers, all the rest of it as part of my job, basically my career. What I do a little Substack and it's a sort of newsletter post, and I don't really talk about the quotes because you get the quotes anyway. It's more what I've noticed that day, or body language and stuff like that. And you're absolutely right. I appreciate you reading it as well. He was furious. He was absolutely. And normally he's quite an intense person as a person, let alone as a footballer or a manager and all the rest of it. But he's quite intense. And normally he's on a level. Whether it's a sort of intense level in a good way or an intense level in a bad way, he'll get whatever he wants to say out. He will say a lot without saying much sometimes, but it'll always be in a level. But he was properly angry. He was, and what I really liked as well, obviously with my journalist hat on and with my fans hat on, we've had 6 months of Postecoglou moaning about injuries. It's like, come on, you're the only club who's ever had injuries. And someone put a question to Arteta on Saturday. He just goes, no, it's not about injuries. It's about we all need to look at ourselves in the mirror and just, it's not good enough. We need to do better, basically. And there's so many things we could talk about on the back of that. But the fact he said it was good for me. And, they're obviously, life and social media aren't the same at all. And there's a massive disconnect there. And you do see some numpties on, everyone's entitled to opinion, but people on social media going, well, I'll take her out. I know it's only a handful. It's a real daft selection and I shouldn't even be raising it. But who do you want to bring in? Like, don't raise a problem without creating a solution. Tell me who you want to bring in, who will know more about the culture of Arsenal Football Club, having played, having won trophies, having absolutely, he cares so much. He works. I see him no one works harder for the success of Arsenal. Obviously, you can say it's all about results, so you can say, well, it's not happening, but no one will work harder. You get someone else in, who are you going to bring in? Who's going to know about the club? Who's going to know about the players? Who's going to know about the culture he's been engendering for the last 3 or 4 years, getting rid of all the cliques? Whatever you thought of them as players, there was so many cliques. It was like the George Graham time, the era when he got rid of all the Tony Wilcox and Charlie. As much as I loved them, and they were massively underachievers. Arteta's got to the point now. This is his squad. You could argue we should have been title winners for the last 2 years, but we played against arguably the best team in English football history, funded by the petrochemical billions of dollars, and that has absolutely wasted Man City. Now it's almost like both teams have been depleted by that rivalry over the last couple of years because it's been so intense. So if people are going, well, yeah, it was terrible against Man City, let's get another manager and I'm sick of this. No, support your club or tell me who you want to bring in, because there's no one who can do a better job than Arteta as far as I'm concerned. Doesn't mean we can't question him. And I, for one, have been questioning him as a journalist. I'll have a moan down the pub if we lose. But as a journalist, I've got every right to go, this isn't good enough. But he's doing his best. There's nothing else I can do. The only thing I would say, I covered the America tour last summer. I was in Los Angeles and covered the United game and the Bournemouth game as well. And Arteta had a sit down with the Cronkies. And, Josh was there. I can't remember if Silent Sam was there, but Josh basically pulls it. He's the one in charge. That will certainly feedback everything. And obviously Eddie was there. Maybe he knew he was going. I don't know. But if it was, then it's a dereliction of duty. But that is when they should have said, okay, look, we need you to get the wallet out, get the purse out, whatever you want to call it, get your money out and buy a centre forward. Buy him, whatever you need. And they come out of that meeting in the summer in Los Angeles happy with the squad we've got. So, that you can't see, it's hindsight. You can't say, oh, yeah, we're going to lose all our strikers. So, if Arteta was happy with that squad in August, then fair enough. You could argue now, okay, well, maybe we should have bid more than 40 million for Ollie Watkins, but that's going to then have a massive knock-on effect in the summer when we want to go back for Sesko, or maybe, who knows, bid 100 million for it. You just don't know. But people can go, oh, you should have bought this and should have bought that. But if you'd have said to anyone last summer, after that meeting, basically, that Arsenal are going to lose every centre forward by January, no, you'd be mad. It doesn't happen. So, it's almost like we need a little bit of a rebuild, because Real Madrid will be sniffing around Saliba in the summer. It happens. If we get 100 million for him, why not, 40, 50, 60 million for Mark Gay at Palace? I covered the Euros last year. Covered most England games from the press box. He was England's best player in that tournament. We get him in for 60. Palace turned down Newcastle for 60 million. Give him 70 million. We get him in. We've got another world-class centre back there. It's all about succession planning, basically, because this squad has almost gone through its cycle now. We should have had 2 league titles, maybe a third if you talk about this season. But
Dan, let's go to Forest a little, because
I'm blabbering away. Sorry, lads.
No, Layth, you've just opened up a huge can of worms. There's so many different topics.
Sorry,
because it's absolutely brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. But Dan, title contenders, is it over? Chris Woods, Forest away. Just follow on from that. Come on, Dan. Follow on.
Mate, I can't follow on from that. There's too many valid points in there that I could go all night. But the one thing I would absolutely say is that the best thing I heard in that was Arteta was angry, because I want to see that anger now, and I want to see that anger come out on Wednesday night, because I'm hoping I'm sure he does, by the way. I'm sure he shares the anger of the Arsenal fans. And I feel like that's sort of the emotion I'm feeling at the moment and I'm not going to go back too much to West Ham until later, but that's the emotion I've got at the minute, is because I feel like we had an opportunity at the minute and we didn't take it. But you can't just now write the season off. We've got so many games to the end of this season that if you tail off, we're not too far ahead of the top four. And I don't want to say that we're going to be challenging just for top four, but we've got many things to focus on. That's not just this season. It's revenue for future seasons that we need to make sure we're finishing as high as possible. We need to get as far as we can in the Champions League to earn money. And at the end of the day, we've got a good 2,000-3,000 strong Arsenal fans that follow everywhere that deserve to get a bit back from the players after that performance on the weekend. So there's a lot to bounce back with on Wednesday, regardless of who plays, injuries or not, whoever plays, whether it's Sterling, whether it's Ødegaard, Wanyeri, etc. So I'm expecting to see a performance, and it's a ground that I think for me is a great little ground to go to. The atmosphere is always pretty good there. I think of the 7 Premier League games we've actually had there recently, we've won 4 of them. So it's not as if we've got a fantastic record there. And last year's result, even when we won, it was a tight win, and Forest are in a very, very good position at the minute. I know they've had a couple of results recently where they have probably let in a few more goals than what we expect, because they have been very solid defensively this year. But they're going to look at that West Ham game and say, that's the template of how we need to play: sit in, sit tight, counter. And they've got the players to hit us on the counter with Hudson-Odoi and Elanga, etc. as well. And Gibbs White is a fantastic player that keeps them ticking over. And Chris Wood's been unbelievable this season. So we've got a lot of effort needed to get anything out of that game. But one thing I would say is what we need is, before I came on here, as I said, I've been a bit down all weekend, but the energy, Layth, you've just given me from you chatting, I'll tell you what, we need some of that in the away end.
Oh, mate, honestly, I appreciate that. No, yeah, no, mate, no, yeah, Hudson-Odoi. Like, I saw him. I covered, obviously, I covered the youths as well. In 2018, he was the best young player in England when Chelsea beat Arsenal in the UEFA Youth Cup final over 2 legs. It's only 1 leg these days, but he was immense. And I always followed his career, and he sort of, he went off the boil a little bit. And Chelsea's the wrong club if you want a youngster to come through. They just don't nurture him enough. And we all know we could name other players as well who've done that. But it's good to see him fit and fine. Obviously not against Arsenal, but he scored a cracking goal against Newcastle yesterday. And Saturday, was it yesterday? I can't even think. I've done what day it is. But he was really, really impressive. And Arsenal have to be really careful. They've got so many good players. Like you say, Wan-Bissaka had a really good game down the flank on Saturday, and they've got 2, like you said it yourself, they've got 2 really good sort of wing back fullbacks. We have to be really careful about that, because Calafiori, for me, had his worst game in an Arsenal shirt on Saturday. Wan-Bissaka would just run past it, basically. The 2 centre halves as well, there was so much space between them for Bowen's goal, and you never see that normally between them, and you just think, no, it's unacceptable. We'll put it to one side, move on, but we've got to be careful. Forest are a really, really good side, and it should be a cracking game. I think there'll be a few goals in it as well. And like you say, the atmosphere at the City Ground is immense, and I love it, especially on a dark, cold night when you get the mist coming in from the Trent, and it's all against us, and
it's a great city
and all that. I love it. I love those sort of nights, and hopefully we've got enough to beat them, because it is over, but I don't want to say it's over, because you just never know in football. Like, I think it has been a pivotal week.
I think the fat lady is gargling, but she's
because I don't want to be deluded. You see some Twitter accounts out there, and God bless them, they're not throwing in the towel and all the rest of it. But you do have to be realistic as well. And I think there's always a pivotal time in every season, and I think we've just had it, basically, because if Liverpool had lost on against City, that would have given us such momentum. If we'd have beaten West Ham, could have kicked on. Obviously Newcastle were coming back into good form again after having a little dip after they beat us. If they'd have got a point, and they still can at Anfield on Thursday night after hopefully we beat Forest, it's you could argue we would have been 1 point behind them. It's obviously not, and 11 points is a lot. Basically, I don't care what Arnie Slot says, but I saw him rattled at Forest from the press box. And he was rattled in the Merseyside derby as well. He's not some calm figure who's serenely, treading through the whole Premier League. He's been. They are a good side, but they've had how many injuries have they?
They've had a lot. They've had a lot of luck. They've had a lot of luck.
Yeah,
and like we had for the last 2 seasons previous.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
We had for the last 2 seasons previous. We didn't have as many injuries. Trevor, what's your thoughts on Forest away? I know it's a game not far from you, and it's a stadium you like to go to.
Firstly, Layth, we've been on over half an hour, mate. How you doing?
What time is it? Christ. I better go in a minute. I just want to hear what you're going to say, then I better shoot. My daughter will kill me otherwise.
Well, mate, listen, I'm not going to go to the Forest game if we've only got a couple of seconds left. Firstly, I read your Substack piece this week, people. If you like listening to what Layth has said tonight, go on to Substack. Layth does his pieces on there, and I love reading them. And the piece you've done after the West Ham game, I resonated with it because Dan is half my age, and I love Dan like a son. I really do. He's become a very close friend of mine. But when you talked about the way older people like myself bounce back after a loss like that, younger people take it a lot harder. And that has been absolutely what's happened this week. I mean, it hurt me, but I've been there, seen other things, and I managed to move on from it a bit quicker. Whereas these younger lads like Dan, they've not seen the success that we've seen, They've not seen that success. And I fully understand why you got upset. And I think it's a really important piece for people to read if they want to put some perspective on how fans can support one club, but be slightly different, And that's not bad. That's not bad. And the second thing is, mate, I love the way you talked about Arteta then because, and I'm going to say this to you, you're fortunate in that you get in that press room and you get an absolutely different perspective of Arteta as to what we do. And I'm over the moon that you said we don't need to change him. And I'm not going to ask you any more questions, Layth, because I know that you'll have a daughter screaming in your ear because I've done all that in the past. But I'll hand back to Ferg. But before I do, I just want to say, mate, I appreciate you coming on here so much. And hopefully, if I don't see you on Wednesday for a selfie, we'll hopefully have a beer in Eindhoven, mate. I'd love that.
Brilliant. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very, very much. If you do have that selfie, make sure he keeps it. Make sure he keeps his top on. You know what he's like.
yeah. Well, I want to check out. I've got an Arsenal tat on my shoulder. I want to check out his tats close up. To be fair, probably should have said that aloud. Though, really, should I? Honestly,
Layth, thank you very much. Hopefully longer next time.
Yes,
but
we'll
hopefully get you on a bit more regular as well. That'd be absolutely brilliant. Brilliant to see you. Thank you very much.
Cheers, gents. Take care. All the best. Up the Gunners. See you, Nottingham.
See you later, mate. Cheers. Bye. Wow,
We've been really rude here. Because Dan's hardly got a word in, and that's partly down to my excitement and listening to Layth. So Dan, I'm sorry, mate. You didn't get a lot of.
To be honest, mate,
I don't think anybody got a word in.
No, honestly, I quite enjoyed listening to it. And I think the biggest thing is listening to like it comes across in a passionate way, and it's an Arsenal fan in a position that we'd all love to be in. If I'm honest, it's If jealousy is possible, it's definitely something I'd say I'm jealous of. If I could have a job where I'm meeting and chatting to the players week in, week out, and the manager alike, it's what a great way to live your life.
Exactly, Dan. And Fergus, see, Layth is a journalist, he's an author, he's an editor, but most of all,
he's an Arsenal
fan. A fan. He's a fan of our great club, and I love that.
So what are we thinking on this Forest game? I think it's going to be a really tough ask on this Forest game. I am hoping that we can go up there. And put it this way, if we don't get 3 points, I think that's probably the nail lined up. And, just wait for the hammer to strike.
Before we get straight into the Forest, this is probably a perfect timing to lead on from Layth into a question I wanted to ask Trev, because Trev actually sent me that article that he just mentioned that Layth wrote about moving on from game to game. And it is something that definitely have struggled with the last couple of days because I just can't get the West Ham opportunity out of my head. But you do have to, no, it's definitely not time for that, mate. You do have to try and move on and get it out of your head. But at the minute, like so many people probably today, have woken up in just a terrible mood. And it's not that easy to move on, but the players have got to move on. So the question for you and Trev alike, how do you move on? How do you put it out your head and just pretend it doesn't matter? Because to me, it just does, and I can't get beyond that in a minute.
I think as a I'll go first. I think as a footballer, if I'm thinking as a footballer, they're professional. They're doing a job. They have to go out and do it better next time round. So for them, it's probably easier than it is somebody who's passionate and lives their life by it like you do, and so on. I think age helps a little bit. Dan, I think avoiding social media, as Charn said on there, and turning down the WhatsApp groups and having a laugh and the banter and accepting that we weren't good on the day. We'll go through the game in a few minutes, but we weren't good on the day. So there's nothing me, you, or Trev, or the other 60,000 in the stadium can do. We could sing and we could be louder, and some of us tried. Hence, my voice is still a little bit hoarse. But I think you just have to I'm trying not to say get it into perspective, because that's almost insulting, and I don't mean that as a bad. But you have to put it into perspective in the greater scheme of things of life. And I know, talking to you directly, I know how passionate you feel about Arsenal. I know how passionately you support the Arsenal, and I know how I see firsthand how it affects you, and you need to try and dial it down. Just love it as much as you do, but dial it down when it gets you. I don't know, Trev.
Never had spoken.
I'm going to keep that there forever and a day. And every time you make a mess, Fergus, that's going on, right? Listen, right? This is quite a serious subject, right? Because I watched my mate Dan this week get really upset from watching the Arsenal. I think there's several different reasons why I'm able to maybe not move on from it. It's still in my head. I'm still thinking about how we change it for Wednesday and, blah, blah. But I'm able to leave it right at the back, not at the forefront, And I think probably it is an age thing. As a younger man, I was a very angry man when the Arsenal lost. It was a day of, and we moan about social. It has to be said, we moan about social media nowadays, right? If we got beat in the 80s, we used to go and fall out with the opposition fans, and I'm not going to say anything more than that, because I'm not incriminating myself. And we used to clear our heads that way, or we'd go to the pub. And you talk to your mates in the pub after the game, and then most of them you wouldn't see till the following week. So you at times it wasn't in your mind, it wasn't being pumped in your head all the time like social media does. Social media doesn't give you a second's break from it. It's at you. So I think it's age, I think it's experience. I've seen far worse Arsenal sides than this losing, and it's made me angry. And at the end of the day, what I really got in my head was, although that was, we're going to talk about it in a second, I know, Ferg, although that was probably the most abysmal, I don't think that's a too strong a word, that was probably the most abysmal performance I've seen from an Arsenal team in a few years against West Ham, right? Okay. I've still got it in my head that we can't be that bad again on Wednesday, we can't be that bad. And at the end of the day, we've lost, what is it, 1 in the last 15?
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm older than Dan, been there, seen it, done it, got a T-shirt in a different era when we had different ways of dealing with these things, And Dan, I suffer with you, mate, because when I see you so upset about the Arsenal, it upsets me as well. But, we'll be all right.
What I would say is if I was to see, I think something like, obviously when we last won the league, I was 11, 12, something like that. So it's not the same as being able to experience it firsthand. And what I would say is, and it's probably so many fans feeling exactly the same way, is that you build it up so much in your head that there's a chance we could do this, and then all of a sudden it's so deflating with like the effort you put in as a fan, and then it drops off again. And you have to keep looking forward, and we've got a huge game on Wednesday that we have to push forward towards. And it's sort of what led me into the tweet that I put up on the weekend, in that there's, exactly as you guys have said and Layth has said, and a lot of people in the chat have said, there's so many more important things in life, and a bit of perspective, that on that Saturday we said goodbye to a young fan. And the most important thing after that loss for me was just go check in on your mates and your family and your friends and make sure they're okay, and put an arm around them, and we go again. And I think that's what we need to look at Wednesday, is we go again.
It's very true. To be honest, Dan, you mentioned it even before I was going to put these photos up of on the 23rd minute. Young 23-year-old Arsenal fan, an Arsenal supporter who was away with us all and the Ashburton Army in Leicester, sadly took his own life after the game. He celebrated with his friends, apparently. I don't know too much detail. And the dark clouds came over, but he was respected at the Emirates Stadium. The stadium went silent, there was a round of applause. The West Ham fans stopped singing and they start clapping and applauding him. And also the Ashburton Army are affiliated to Arnhem, I think that's in Belgium, but they also put up a banner to commemorate him. But you know what? I think it's really good that you brought this topic, Dan, because it's self-reflection as well as also dealing with like the pressures of that we put upon each other. And I think that poor lad, he didn't and couldn't. And it's important that I didn't know you were going to do that. We've got a script. None of it's on. we haven't said one word of 2 pages of work I done yesterday. It's just naughty, really good.
Ferg, we've been really naughty not mentioning Jacob sooner, and Dan's exactly right. Now, I'm not looking for sympathy here, right? But that game came quite hard to me because, as most people know, it was a long, long time ago, so I'm not looking for sympathy. My dad took his own life, and as a 15-year-old, sent me completely off the rails. I didn't have any support, and I was a mess. But it's there, it's in the back of your head, like I just said, but it's not something that springs to mind all the time. But then when I watched that tribute being paid to Jacob there, right, I thought that's good. That's good that those young lads understand in the AA, understand how important it is to get the message out there that there is help about, in their own way. And then to stone the crows, on the way home, someone jumps in front of me train and I'm stuck on the train for 3.5 hours, So I get off at Peterborough, Donna's there to fetch me. And I'd already told her what had happened, and she'd give me straight away. She knows me that well, give me a big, big cuddle, right? And Dan, you're so right to raise that tonight. As I say, I'm not looking for sympathy for myself. That's a long time ago. But what I'm just agreeing with you is that, please, if you're feeling down, ask for help, right? There is help there. There didn't used to be in the way it is now.
And also, Trev, blokes are willing to listen and talk now, where they weren't before.
Every problem, right, in your head is a temporary problem. You can make things better, but you can't make things better by taking a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Yeah. So, I can't say any more on it because I start getting upset. But
right,
all I would say on that is to move forward is that this is a fantastic platform to be able to just try and help people. So it's a great way of getting that message out there. And if it helps just one person, it's one person that didn't think we'd be able to help elsewhere. So I think just remember that Arsenal is a family. There's many people around that you meet on match day, that you meet in and around the ground, on this platform, in a chat, us guys here that will always be willing to listen. And that's probably the biggest message out of that is let's move on from that result. Be positive. We've got many other things other than football to keep this going forward. And let's enjoy a nice Wednesday night trip to Forest, a few beers with your mates, and hopefully a nice result to go with it.
So what are we going at Trent, at the City Stadium on the river, on the banks of the River Trent? What score predictions are we doing on there? Sorry, I'm just trying to bring it back a little, not to try and
we need to. We need to. This sounds massively disrespectful, but we've said what we needed to say now. We don't need to dwell on it for all of our sakes, and probably some of our viewers' sakes. Talk about Forest, Ferg. You do it. It's right, mate. It's the right thing to do.
Forest. So I'm. Do we stick with that same lineup? The lineup that we had against West Ham was Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori was on for Lyle. My brain's a bit fried.
Miles Lewis-Skelly.
Miles Lewis-Skelly. Thank you.
And
we had Marino on as well. Do we stay with that lineup, or do we go with the only alternative lineup that we have, which is putting Lewis-Skelly on? We have got Ben White come back. Ben White was great to see him back in the West Ham game because it's a topic I want to go into as well once I get your feelings on the Forest game. But Ben White's been a huge miss this season. What sort of lineup are you going with, and what score are you going with, Dan?
To be honest, for me, it's the same comment as I had about against West Ham, is that I think it should have been that same lineup that started against Leicester.
I agree.
And I think the second option is go to Marino. But he's not a natural centre forward, and he's going to be there for me for the last 10, 15 minutes of a game when you need to throw the ball into the box. Other than that, you've got 3 players in Nwaneri, Trossard and Sterling that are the most natural attacking players that we have left in this squad at the minute, and the only guys that really have the movement, the runs, and the intensity to get in behind a back 4. You're not going to have that same run with Marino. So for me, it would be starting with the wrong mindset to be starting with Marino. You need to be starting with an idea of we are going to play football, we're going to keep the ball on the ground, we're going to try and get through the team and break them down. And just hope that we have an improved performance from not just those front 3, but the whole team on Wednesday. So we're low on options. But for me, that's the option. Look, score prediction. Do you want to go head or heart, mate? Because I think the way I'm feeling at the minute with the football is I'm not going there with expectation, if I'm being totally honest, but I'm going there with heart belief that the Arsenal will win and that we'll nick it like a 2-1 again. There is more hope there than actually believing, if I'm so honest at the minute.
Trevor, as people have pointed out, I think Lewis Skelly will probably be banned because of the red card, which we'll, again, also talk about in a second. This is all asked about face, but what's your thoughts and predictions? And it's getting full, you know.
Yeah, it's what? Oh,
don't worry.
I love that badge.
Look, right. Simons makes a very good point, a point that's been playing in my mind for most of today when I've been planning for this podcast. West Ham did a job on us much like they did last season, and they had as soon as they lost the ball up the field, West Ham dropped and got in their shape. Right, got their 4-4, 2 banks of 4, and we couldn't break it down. We just clueless. It was abysmal. It was awful, to be honest. I can't see us playing that bad again, right? So I made 3 points to myself this morning to talk about. Dan's touched on Marino. I thought that we'd start with Sterling against West Ham, but I can see why he went with Marino. Marino looked like a striker at Leicester, but he got absolutely no ball against West Ham. Not a look in did Marino get. So, yeah, that's down to Arteta to decide will we go back. Secondly, Benny White. Do we bring him back in now? How did he show? What do you think? I mean, for me, if Ben White's 100% fit, he comes back in. He plays, right? He plays. He lifts our side, and he also gets up to all the no good things that help us win games. And the third thing, right, that I cannot work out for the life of me. Fergus has gone for a pee, so it's up to you, Dan. I know they were all bad against West Ham, but for me, Rice just seemed to disappear, and he got substituted early. And people are saying it's because West Ham intimidating him. I'm not having that because he's played very well against them in the last 2 or 3 games for us. But I just thought that Declan. So I've not seen Declan do that. I've not seen him just play that badly, Dan.
I don't think he was as bad as people are making out, mate. I really don't.
I knew you'd disagree.
Yeah, I can't see how you can put him ahead of anyone else, to be honest, mate. I thought from 1 to 11, it was a terrible team performance. It was.
Wait. I didn't put him ahead of anyone else. They all played poorly, but that was the one that surprised me the most, Dan, if I'm honest.
Right, okay. Well, I'll come back to the overall team and I'll go to your question first. But what I didn't see from Declan Rice is a drop-off in his running and his effort, and that is what Declan Rice is. But he isn't going to be the natural player that sits there and breaks down the team. And I understand the substitution that Arteta made, if I'm honest, because looking at our bench, what options did he really have at that time? And he's brought on Zinchenko in that left 8 position to try and be more creative and get through a low block. And then it's a choice of, do you take off Rice, do you take off Partey? And we all said many times that in that 6th position, the best player we have at the minute is Thomas Partey. So I wouldn't even put that down to he had a bad performance. I would put it down to he got taken off because he wanted a tactical change to something that wasn't working. He was trying to be proactive in changing it. I think the criticism of Declan Rice is a bit harsh, if I'm honest. Some
people are saying like it's because he's a West Ham fan. He's not a West Ham fan. He's been a Chelsea fan. He was at Chelsea academy as a kid, and they dropped him. So he's always been a Chelsea fan. So.
I don't think that had any impact on him at all, mate.
No.
If I'm honest, he's a professional footballer.
Absolutely.
Fergus, listen, you're like, you've just been to empty your bag, so you're like 2 minutes behind us. We've already talked about this. You know what I mean? Well, they must go on delay or something when you're in your bathroom. I don't know.
Trev, get your badge out, mate. He deserves it.
Maybe running water distorts the sound or something. You don't hear it right. But
So Trevor, since you didn't hear the question earlier on, what's your prediction for scores at Forest then?
After what we've seen from Forest this week of leaking goals at Newcastle, well, mind you, we leak goals at Newcastle, and Saturday, never will I be more happy ever in my whole 62 years than to get a 1-0 win on Wednesday night.
I'm with you. Listen, there was a couple of things that I wanted to talk about the West Ham game. I think we've covered most of them. The first one was Ben White, the importance of Ben White being back in the squad. I'm conscious that people have said in the chat as well that that we need to bed him back in slowly, but I think he's going to get more minutes quite quickly, quite soon. I think a couple of people have said in there about he adds a bit of needle. His shithousery is absolutely amazing. So I think that's important, and it was really good to see him come on. He was unfortunate not to score a goal, but the goal that was scored against us was Bowen's goal. And West Ham set up with a 3-4-2-1. So they basically flooded their own box, and we just done that arcing horseshoe in front of them for the majority of the first half. We were down that end. Dan, we didn't see hardly any Arsenal players up our end. They're all down the other end. And then they took this one break. And you can see from this on here, it was 43. Let me take that off. It was 40. Look, there we go. 43-07. He receives the ball on the edge of his D. And 43-24, he's scoring the goal. Great break. Well brought up the pitch by Wan-Bissaka. But the cross that was put in, Calafiori for me, I even said it live when I was watching it. Bearing in mind how many beers I had, that's impressive. That I thought Calafiori gave Wan-Bissaka way too much space and let him run too much. And you touched on Rice, but Rice, Saliba, and Gabriel, Topper neglected their duty. Like Rice was the closest man to Bowen, and it looked like he didn't pull out of it, but it just looked like he didn't get close enough to his man. What's your thoughts on that goal?
I think I mentioned Rice, but I tried to say, I was shocked because Rice, of all the people, I thought he would have had a good game. But other than that, I shouldn't have really mentioned Rice. And if I'm honest, Ferg, I think you're being wrong to.
I was going to mention Rice anyway, so.
No, listen, no, I'm not having a go at anybody here, but what I'm saying is, on reflection, there's been a couple of comments, and it's right. It was just a really bad team performance from 1 to 11. It was awful, and I can't see us playing that badly again on Wednesday. Nottingham Forest will come at us a bit. We'll have more space to do exactly what we didn't do at the weekend, and that's break down the team when we get into their half. I don't know. I felt after the first 10 minutes on Saturday that we weren't looking good. I had that feeling that we weren't looking good. West Ham dropped into their shape, didn't they? And, injuries are obviously costing us, right? But is that an excuse for a performance like Saturday, boys? Is it?
I don't know. I thought it was very poor. I think injuries probably do have a part to play, not in the sense that the squad members that are playing a lot of minutes and a lot of times, and they're training hard as well. They're probably carrying a few injuries themselves along the way, and just playing through the pain barrier because we don't have many options. We've lost Lewis Skelly now to the red card, so that also puts us under pressure to play Calafiori, Timber, and our Rice and our White. So you got a player that's coming back from injury that's going to be probably forced on a bit quicker than he needs to. We're fortunate that we don't have many games. We've got this game, then we got 10 days off, then we go away to PSV. We've got Chelsea. No, we got Man United, PSV at home and Chelsea at home, and then we've got another 2 weeks off, I think. So we got a lot of time for some of these players to get back and recover. I don't think many are. I think it's going to be Saka probably. That's about it. Yeah, I don't know. I can't make any other excuses for it, Trev.
I know Dan's going to come in right after just now, but your head goes off on all sorts of tangents, doesn't it? And most of it's crap, but your head goes off on these tangents. And I even thought to myself, when we were banging at a closed door in the second half, when West Ham kept falling into their formation, as you rightly just summed it up, Ferg, we were playing that horseshoe going round and round and round, but going absolutely nowhere, really. Arteta obviously likes a possession-based game, doesn't he? He loves to keep the ball, keep the ball, keep the ball. And in games like that on Saturday, did we need a plan B, maybe, where we took a bit of a chance and the ball went over the top a few times? You know, I don't know. I'm clutching at straws. I'm not having a go at anybody there. I'm just saying what's in my head. Dan, you've not said a lot, mate. I'm going to leave it to you. Please don't be horrible to me, though, Dan.
I mean, what I would say, right, is when we sort of plan to come on here, I tried to put some notes together of West Ham, and I sat there for so long, and I just couldn't think of many positive things. And I tried to think what went wrong. And the headline I summed it up with is it was a poor day all round from all parties involved. And that's from the management team to the players to the fans. There wasn't a single thing about that day that I felt went right. And you can sit there and dig out an individual here and there, but it's a collective thing that went wrong on Saturday. And the goal, for example, right? Partey steps out when he shouldn't do. Rice doesn't follow the ball when it comes in. Calafiori doesn't get close. The guys tracking Bowen back don't track him properly and don't break up the play. It's not just an individual thing, but what I like to look at as a fan is what can we actually impact individually on our own? And the only thing we can do as fans is make a noise. And I can't help but feel that as a fan base, that atmosphere we produced at a time when we were closing in, trying to put a bit of pressure on Liverpool, for a Liverpool team that was actually starting to falter a little bit and showing signs of dropping some points, that what we produced as a fan base wasn't good enough as well on that day, the same as it wasn't good enough on the players on that day. And I think we've added pressure on ourselves as a fan base, as opposed to taking the pressure away from the team like most fan bases do. We've sat there and we've allowed ourselves to get a little bit sorry for ourselves with injuries, a little bit sorry for ourselves with decisions that's gone against us. We've got on top of people for not buying players, which we can all make a case of, probably the same case that we need to buy those players. But we've all allowed it to get on top of us when the basics that we should be doing is going to the ground and making a noise. And I think we've got a little bit of a self-entitled outlook as a fan base. And I think as a fan base, we need to grow up a little bit and not being so self-entitled and say, whatever happens, we're going to go to that game and for that 90 minutes, try and help lift the team. And you had so many members of that team trying to say to the fan base, come on, help lift us. They obviously needed a help. Something wasn't right on that game and they needed a lift. And we also didn't give it to them the same as they didn't give it to us. And this is a two-way street, not just we sit back, watch the players and clap them and say, well done. We're supposed to be there as a team and lift them as well. And unfortunately, we didn't do that.
Right. I think we're done with the West Ham game. The only topic I was going to say on the West Ham game was of all the 5 red cards that we've had this season, I've disagreed with 4 of them. I can't really disagree with this one, Trevor.
No, it was red. It was red. But listen, Ferg, right? As you just said, right? We've done it now. We've had a lovely chat with Layth, right? We've done West Ham. We've all said our piece. Now let's talk. We've talked about how many we're going to win by against Forest because we're going to bounce back, right? And the away fans at the City Ground are going to be raucous behind our boys. So we're going to get a nice win on Wednesday. And then we got a weekend off. And then, Dan, Monday morning, son, at the airport, Guinness for breakfast for me.
To be honest, mate, I honestly think the next run of 3 games, I'm so happy they're away from home because I think we've got more of a chance of picking the team up away from home at the minute than we do at home. And maybe a change of competition is what we need for the players and for the fans. And exactly as you said, we've got something to look forward to, a nice trip away. I'm really looking forward to the European ones of getting
and
away.
That view. And that view.
Fergus, does that give you any flashback, mate? How's your hand doing?
My arse is sore just looking at it.
Can we give some context to the viewers on that, please?
Yeah, I slipped down the stairs and broke my coccyx, and also that was the night of this clip.
Oh my Lord! Listen, I had to suffer that away end last year, and I got a lovely message from a press photographer who I'm friendly with today, and he said he's doing the Eindhoven game next week. Are we going to meet up for a beer? And I dropped him a message back and saying, "Yeah, of course we can." Not that he didn't take that picture actually, Fig. He said,
"Not that good."
He said
he's actually very good.
I said, "Of course we can meet up for a beer, but I need to know if you can get me in as your photographer's assistant and sit me pitch side, because I hate that view at that away in there at Eindhoven. It's horrible. Horrible. And if you're old like Fergus, you're falling into yourself. You break your coccyx and you sprain your wanking wrist."
Oh dear.
I shouldn't have laughed.
You just want to sit in that bar, the hotel bar in the airport, and sit there drinking Moretti's till 1 a.m. and just piss yourself laughing, just remembering that. I'm not over this time, so I can't do myself any damage. To be honest, I was quite glad, because I'm not doing the European tour this year. I was quite glad it was Eindhoven, because if it was Feyenoord, I might have been tempted to go, oh. But that place just gives me PST. Honestly, it does. But let's look at the way the draw works out. Sorry, Trevor, I know it's over you, but PSV versus Arsenal, the winners of that will play either Real or Atletico Madrid in the quarterfinal, and then the winners of that will play either the winners of PSG versus Liverpool, and Aston Villa versus Club Brugge. You're not happy with this?
No, that's better.
How do we see this going then, Dan? How do we see that
hopefully
going?
We get through, because some idiots have booked flights to Madrid.
You got on the piss anyway. You don't care.
What Wally made me book Madrid? I'll tell you what, though.
There's going to be hundreds of Arsenal fans out there. If we win, lose, or draw against Eindhoven, it's going to be a great little trip.
Yep, it could be PSV, Atletico, it could be Arsenal, Real Madrid, it could be anything. But regardless, we'll be there enjoying it. But I'll tell you what, I'm still very optimistic that we're going to get an Arsenal, Real Madrid quarterfinal, and that was something I picked out, I think, most of the season, that I just really wanted an away trip to Madrid to go and see the Bernabeu.
You said that even when we were in Madrid last year. You said that's where you wanted to go, Madrid or Barcelona.
Yeah, and look, you can't shy away from the big teams. If you want to be a big team, you've got to beat the big teams. And I'll tell you what, regardless of who's fit and who's not, if you're on that pitch, there's got to be something that says to you, I want to go out and prove a point that I'm ready to be on this big stage. And by that point, quarterfinal time, I'm hoping that you get Martinelli back, you get Saka back, a few more players, a bit more set up for the Champions League. And who knows, being positive, if the league is over, then maybe it gives us a bit of a chance to focus on the Champions League, rest a few players either side of it, and who knows, it might help us in the Champions League.
Yeah. At what point do we do it if the result's not right Wednesday? Is that when the league's done?
No, it's never done for the fat load of things.
Yeah, I know, but we do have to. I think we have got to win every game, and Liverpool have to lose 4. I think, or something like that. That's what
I think you have to forget about the league, and I think you just have to focus on the next game. And our goal is we have to go and beat Forest. You can't be sitting there thinking about the league. You have to go game by game, and it's also about building momentum. Because if we're going into that PSV game away from home with a tough place to go, with a good atmosphere, we want to go there with a bit more of a high. And a bit more of a confidence for the players and the fan base. So it starts with Wednesday. You know, these games all add up to build momentum as a team.
Trevor, it starts with Wednesday. We will be up there. Have you anything to add before we press that button?
Yeah, listen, right. I'm over the moon, because Dan and myself last week, before we knew who was progressing where, we just booked 2 return flights to Eindhoven. I got mine for 36 quid. What was yours, Dan?
I think mine was about 60 odd, but then I'm going through Amsterdam for an extra day on Sunday, mate.
So I'm going out on Monday, coming back on Wednesday for 36 quid. And I was prepared to lose that 36 quid, but thankfully it's come really good. They were like 500 and odd yesterday, and there am I, all cushy, 36 quid. I'm sorry about my choice of words just now, by the way. That's not acceptable. You shouldn't use things like that anymore in this day and age. But cushy. No, not that. When I talked about a lady singing, it's not acceptable. I'm not happy with myself for that. I'm not happy with myself. But anyway, listen. We've done well now. We've lifted it. People out there's nearly 300 of you out there, right? We're going to go to Nottingham Forest on Wednesday, and we're going to scream and shout our heads off for our team, and we're going to get a win, right? But if we don't beat Forest, we're going to be down again for a bit. But then when we get to Eindhoven, we'll support our team again, because that's what we do. It's not happy. It's not happy. It's not up. It's happy, sad, happy, sad, and it's up, and the odd down. So, but that's what football fans do. You know,
Fergus is more down than up, I reckon. But
yeah.
What I would say, question for you two.
Different topic, that.
Yeah, I know. Your question for you two. Being as optimistic as you possibly can, what is your ideal route to the final?
Oh, well, I can see it mapped out. Sorry, Ferg, you first. You first.
No.
Oh,
we've had this discussion in the pub.
Can you take that picture down? I don't like this.
Assuming we were to get there, we have to beat PSV. Then I don't know whether we play against a defensive. Yeah, I know. So did I. I can see it down the bottom. I don't know if we play a defensive-minded Simeone's Atletico, which is a low block which we've struggled to break down throughout this season. We go against the Galacticos of Real Madrid and hope that because they play a bit of football, our defense can be as strong as it can be, and it is one of the best defenses in Europe, probably the world. So I suppose, as much as it frightens the life out of me, I suppose Real Madrid, and as Dan said, you've got to beat the best to be the best. And if you're going on the other route, Villa, Club Brugge, PSG, or Liverpool, I would like to see Liverpool and Villa both get knocked out. That's the truth of it. And then Club Brugge in the final. Why not?
Are you done now?
Yeah.
Right. Can you put that up again, please? Right. Lovely.
That's better, isn't it?
Dan, you take it down now, Ferg.
I don't know, mate. I'm quite enjoying this view at the minute. The viewers probably are as well. It's a bit of an improvement, but yeah.
They call the European Cup big ears. I'll tell you what, they've got no match on Fergus's, however. Come back, Ferg. All is forgiven.
No, go on.
For me, one game at a time yet. Eindhoven, I was confident before the weekend of beating them. Maybe I'm not quite so confident now, but I know we're very capable. So I'm very, very hopeful of beating PSV. Then I think that we'll... that's not the same now, is it? It's not the same now, is it, Ferg? It's not the same.
That done it.
I think if we beat Eindhoven, I'd like to get Real. I really would like to get Real, only because I'm selfish. I've been to the stadium before, but I want to see it with the roof on. And then if we do get to the semi, I can see it being an English team. I can see it being either Villa or Liverpool. And I don't care about either of them, because we've spoken about state. Dan has rightly spoken about atmospheres in stadiums tonight. But I tell you what, Liverpool's on a level with us. Don't you think that's a brilliant atmosphere stadium? Because it's not. A lot of it is piped. But anyway, I'm not bothered about that. All I want to do is beat Forest on Wednesday now, and we'll take it from there. It's not the same, is it, Dan?
Can I do a big review? I've got one.
I've done
Wrong one.
God, Fergus. I was about to have a go. What are you doing?
Andrew. Andrew went to Nottingham to see Louis Dumford the other night, and him and Theo met him outside the stage door much later. And Theo had his Guns and Yellow Ribbons hat on with this on it, which he actually autographed. And Theo went, "Well, I didn't really want you to do that." But he said, "Oh, what's that?" He said, "Oh, it's a podcast." He says, "Oh," I said, "Yeah, I think I've seen that. It's Sam's clip. There has been sent to Louis Dumford so many times that he recognises that one in the Blackstock."
Boys, I know you wouldn't be able to go the whole show without chopping me off, mate. Because is it
Louis or Lewis? I don't know. I can't. I keep on messing up every time.
I asked you a question. You didn't even have the manners to ask me the question back, mate.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Exactly.
The route to the final, mate. The whole point of look at your last point on your agenda. Champions League, route to the final. I want to end on a positive, not on a negative.
Go on then, route to the final.
Right.
There you go. On my jersey permanently.
Can you switch you and Trev? That's better. I get distracted looking at your face, Fergus. So, what I would say is, well, it's just got worse, isn't it? My screen just cracked.
That's it.
To the final, we've got to be positive, and I'd say Champions League. I'm more positive than anything in the league because I think teams in the Champions League will come at us that little bit more, and it will give us that space to go and play a bit of football. So I still think we get through against PSV. Then when you get to the quarters, as I said, you've got to be positive. Martinelli, Saka back in the team, and I pray that we don't get Atletico because they will do an old school job on us if we get them. But Real Madrid, there will be space for us to play and to beat them. And if you get through to a semi-final, I'm not counting Liverpool and Villa because that's not a European tour for me, but Bruges or PSG, I would take either of them and end up with Barcelona in the final. And what a way to get revenge for 2006 and beat Barcelona in the final. That, for me, would be the route of dreams to go and win the Champions League and beat them on the way. So let's keep positive. Revenge is happening this year.
Dan, Trevor, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
He's gone. Last Saturday is now gone. It's erased from our memories. We're never going to talk about it again. We're moving on. Well said, Dan. Fergus, you're now allowed to talk.
And thank you very much to Layth from the Gooner Fanzine. I'll tell you what, he does get paid by the word, doesn't he? Definitely, because he crammed a lot of words in that 33 minutes he was on with us. It was absolutely brilliant.
Interesting, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was. We will have Layth back on again. Thank you, everybody who's watched us. Over 300 people watching us on all platforms at the minute. We would ask, if you're not watching on YouTube, if you would mind, can you go over to YouTube, like and subscribe on the channel? It just helps us out. We're never going to be millionaires on it, but they haven't even paid us any money yet. But it helps us do stuff, as Trevor and I have said before. Thank you very much, everyone. On to Wednesday. Come on, the Arsenal. Come on, the Arsenal.
Thanks for listening to Guns and Yellow Ribbons, an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans. Follow us on Facebook at Guns and Yellow Ribbons or Twitter at Guns and Ribbons. And remember to rate and review us too. Up the Arsenal.